Happy New Year. Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to 2023. I hope everybody's weekend and New Year's Eve was excellent. And I'm back doing videos. So thank you for giving me your time and attention because that's two things that you can't get back. So I greatly appreciate it. Let's get right into it. So this video is going to be about Kevin Samuels and Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate's big in the media right now. And the title of this is Why is Kevin Samuels Dead but not Andrew Tate? Now, this video is not to wish that Andrew Tate was dead. It's just to kind of raise some questions as to exactly who Andrew Tate is and to some degree who Kevin Samuels was, and to kind of explore Kevin Samuels' death and how that seemed to happen so abruptly, but not so much with Andrew Tate. So we're going to go over what we know, what we think we know, and just kind of raise some questions that I think are important. So this idea came to me because I was kind of just thinking about Andrew Tate, everybody's reaction. He just got arrested. I believe they let him out. And I was just wondering, how legitimate is Andrew Tate? Because a lot of times when you see people in the media and they're speaking that good truth and you feel it, it's a good feeling. And it feels so good, sometimes it kind of dullens down our questioning to see if this person is actually legitimate, because some of the things that they're saying is so out there and far-fetched that it just has to be this person is sincere and legitimate. And a lot of times the thought doesn't even come to us that maybe this person could also be an agent or could also be, a plant, because this happens. And a lot of people don't like to hear that because, they kind of, a lot of people are cowards. They don't like to speak up. They feel it's like no point in it. So it's like they see it in front of them, but they don't want to ask themselves certain questions because it could be too painful. They don't want to deal with the pain. There might not be no money involved. For whatever reason, they want to still stay in this matrix bubble and pretend like it doesn't affect them. They don't ask these questions, but I ask these questions because it just comes to me. It's natural. So in looking into Andrew Tate, come to find out that his father was in the CIA, right? His father was a linguist for the CIA. So I was like, okay, here we goes. That never seems to fail. It's like a lot of times when you see these people, now success can happen to pretty much anybody. You do the right principles at the right time over a certain amount of period, success culminates and it manifests. It's just something about watching things in the media, though, that puts things in a different context, because some people just seemingly tend to come out of nowhere and then they rise to prominence. You could say the same thing with Kevin Samuels, right? Even though people put in their work and it seems like it's overnight, but they did work hard. So I don't want it to be misconstrued that, certain people didn't work hard and that's why success came. So just because we see it now, it seems out the blue. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is sometimes it's questionable with certain individuals because the way that they rise and the amount of attention that they get, it makes you question. And during this pandemic, you've seen a lot of people kind of like become stars and like bigger than they've ever was. Kevin Samuels was one of those people, even though he's been making YouTube videos for quite some time. The same thing for Andrew Tate. The difference is Kevin Samuels died last year in March, and Andrew Tate, even though he just got arrested, he's still alive, still pretty big. So I was just wondering that, and when I found out that Andrew Tate has CIA connections, it made me question, like, all right, how authentic and how pure is Andrew Tate, even though a lot of the things that he says is true. And another thing that kind of made me suspicious was where he was arrested. And when you look at where he was arrested in Romania. So I was like, interesting. Let me see what's going on in Romania. Because anytime you see anything in the media, whether a person is legit or not, the way they present the news story, you have to look at people, places, and things. And you definitely have to look at the time when the event is in the media and the place when the event is in the media, because you don't see nothing in mainstream television or even social media news from major news outlets unless it's for a specific time, specific place. That's deliberate. We covered that with all the mass shootings. You know, last year you had almost over 300 um, so-called mass shootings, right? But you only see a few in the news. With all of this technology, all of these cell phones, you only see a few covered, and that's suspicious. So with Andrew Tate got arrested in Romania, and before I get to what most people get to in terms of freaky things like hand gestures and all that, I looked up Romania, and this is what I found. Right, I found a few things. So let me read the article, some articles that I found. So this is going to cover something called bright light. Bright light is the code name for black sites and secret prisons that was found in, guess where? Romania. So when I seen that, I was like, okay, now I don't know if Andrew Tate is connected in any way to these black sites and these secret prisons in Romania. But what I do know is that his father worked for the CIA. He, even though he says that he barely seen his dad was probably the most impactful person in his life, and he seems to know a lot about his father's background in the CIA. So the fact that there's CIA black sites in Romania is something that I found peculiar. So let me read this. A secret CIA prison codenamed Bright Light has been located inside a government building in Bucharest, Romania, the Associated Press reported. The prison is inside of the National Registry for Classified Information headquarters, an investigation by AP and ARD Panorama. Now, this article is in 2011. So these CIA black sites and this secret prison has been in Romania for quite some time. This isn't news, okay? So I just was like, wow, let me keep going. The existence of a CIA prison in Romania has been reported frequently, but this is the first time that an actual location has been revealed. Romanian authorities have denied the existence of such a facility, but human rights investigators and journalists have previously used flight records to tie Romania to the CIA secret prison program. Let me read that again, okay? Romanian authorities have denied the existence of such a facility, but human rights investigators and journalists have previously used flight records to tie Romania to the CIA secret prison program. Now let's go and go more into detail about Bright Light, which is the code name for these black sites in this secret prison and whatever other prisons or sites they have in Romania. Bright Light, CIA, is the code name of one of the Central Intelligence Agency's network of black sites, clandestine interrogation centers. The location of the site in Bucharest, Romania, was confirmed in an exclusive report, like we just read, from the Associated Press. Some of the most important captives in the high-value detainee program include Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind, right? We all know what's up with 9/11. The mastermind of the supposed mastermind. We know the real masterminds. The mastermind of September 11th attacks were held there. Other sites in the CIA's network were in isolated locations. The Bucharest site was housed within the campus of the Romanian National Registry Office for Classified Information, explaining the need for high security. The cells the captive were held in were mounted on springs to keep the captives off balance. According to ABC News, captives were subjected to enhanced interrogation techniques in the Bucharest site, but were not subjected to the controversial technique of waterboarding. So, looking at that, it makes me question just how authentic Andrew Tate is. Okay, and you figure when you place Kevin Samuels and you place Andrew Tate together, you realize that they were actually doing similar things, right? Because the message was parallel. Kevin Samuels was telling men to get their stuff together, that you can't expect a so-called high-valued woman if you don't have certain things in order, if you don't have your finances in order, if you don't have your appearance in order, if you don't have certain things in order, don't even waste your time going after the high quality, supposed high quality women that you seek if you yourself is not a high valued man. Similar to Andrew Tate. You know, he tells men to work out. He tells men to get your money right. He even offers, he has a university in which you can actually call it a secret society, right? Also questionable. He said it was kind of Masonic, from his words, where he offers the same kind of training and advice to improve yourself financially, to understand yourself, better yourself, and also be attractive to women to get the women that you want on your terms as opposed to being susceptible to women's terms. So the message that both of these men were pushing is the same. And the fact that both of these men rose to their highest prominence during this pandemic between 2020 and 2022 is also something to look at. Now, what gets me is how is Kevin Samuels dead but not Andrew Tate? So my own hypothesis that I'm forming is that one possibly has CIA connections, which is Andrew Tate, and the other one, Kevin Samuels, he either didn't have these connections or he had some of these connections, but was most likely told, listen, put this and that in your message or do this, and possibly Kevin Samuels didn't want to do it, and he wound up dead. Now, the narrative for Kevin Samuels' death, and shout out to the Paperwork Party, go check them because they are very on point in covering a lot of deaths that happen, especially with black notable people like Takeoff, like Kevin Samuels, things of that nature. And they actually go over the paperwork, they actually interview the people, and they actually raise questions that make you think. So I definitely suggest you go check out the Paperwork Party Network, because I like what they're doing. And it's necessary because a lot of times when you have these deaths, we just chalk it up to the narrative, the autopsy, and we just leave it at that when we know a lot of these things is foul play. Some deaths are natural, right? But because there's so much confusion and there's so much misinformation and disinformation, it's hard to tell what's what. The sheep will just be like, oh, that's what the autopsy said. Oh, don't deal with conspiracies, and that's that. Leave them alone. Those with critical thinking and actual backbone intact, you ask these questions and then you come up to your own conclusions. And based on some of the things that I've come across, the whole Kevin Samuels thing was kind of suspicious. I believe he was taking some medication for his blood pressure, but he didn't drink, to my knowledge, right? He seemed very fit, and he was still relatively young at around, 51 years old, you know? And I believe the autopsy said that he had an empty stomach, but then there's video of him at a function, and I believe he did eat and did drink, right? So, and the young lady that was supposedly there with him is also questionable in terms of his death. So when I see things like that, it just makes me wonder, what was Kevin Samuels into to cause his death if it wasn't something that was natural, like hypertension, which is what the autopsy said, right? If there is an alternative cause to his death and it was foul play, what's really going on? And when I see, and the more research I do into the manosphere, which I'm going to do a video on that, it makes me think, is that something that was infiltrated by the feds? Because according to the Paperwork Party, right, network, Kevin Samuels was surrounded by feds, right? He grew, a lady that he grew up with, went to school with, she worked in the feds, right? Apparently there were some other individuals that was also working with the feds that had ties to Kevin Samuel. Kevin Samuels was also part of a fraternity. And if you know the history of the Boule and the Divine Nine and even some fraternal organizations, white or black, you know that these organizations are kind of built for you to have connections. So when you leave college, you plug into other members in that fraternal or sorority organization. And if you need to be in a certain position and you need some assistance, that brotherhood or sisterhood will help you out. So I do know that Kevin Samuels was part of a fraternity. What I don't know is if he was part of any kind of federal activity or if he was being monitored. What I do know also is that his viewings was at an apex. He had millions of followers on across social media. New York Times did a piece on him. He interviewed Nicki Minaj. He interviewed T.I. He was in the show Atlanta, ATL. So he was getting out there. But what you didn't see was him in mainstream platforms. You didn't really see him on big news outlets. Now, you do see that with Andrew Tate, okay? So it just makes me question who in the so-called manosphere red pill movement are legitimate and who are not. Is Andrew Tate official, or is he another agent used as controlled opposition to polarize men who feel that something is wrong, right? In a growing movement like the manosphere red pill movement, to kind of pull them to his direction and then kind of steer those people sort of away from the organic manosphere movement into his movement, and then kind of like distract them or throw them off from the true growth that men that are questioning what's wrong are actually doing, right? So when you see Andrew Tate, when you see Myron Gaines, who's also down with the feds, it makes you question who in the manosphere is official and who is not. And I'm going to cover that in the Myron Gaines video that I'm going to do as well. So I just wanted to raise that question. Is Andrew Tate official, or is he a government agent? And if he's a government agent, what is the motive? Is the motive to just steer people away, steer men away? Is it just to divide the genders? Even worse? So that's something that we need to ask, because Andrew Tate, he did say something that did hit home. He said he has 3 lives. The first life, I believe they said, is when they'll censor him, which they've done. The second life is they'll arrest him, which they've done. And he said the third one is that they'll kill him. But he was arrested and he got out. So let's see, not wishing death on him, right? But it would be real suspicious if this man tends to live and continues going and then playing the charade that he's censored and he's for truth, as opposed to people like Kevin Samuels, right, who just so happened to pass. So that's something that's questionable to me. So I wanted to make this video to kind of answer those, raise those questions, and then have people kind of spark the conversation and think about whether or not that's a possibility. And I can't even say it's really a race thing, because Andrew Tate's father is a black man, prominent black man, right? So I can't even say it's race. So if Kevin Samuel's death was not organic and he was killed, and if Andrew Tate is an agent, then we need to start really questioning it deeper into people that come into our vantage point and really dig deep into their past and into their history so we don't get duped. So with that, thank you for your time and attention. I greatly appreciate it. And I look forward to more videos in 2023. Much prosperity. Peace.